Welcome, everyone. We have an exciting episode today. We're welcoming Steven Morales, who is the co-founder of Prime Tracers out of Jacksonville, Florida, right?
You got it.
Welcome, Steven. I appreciate you being on the show. So let's just hop right into it. See a little bit of, we'll get into what Prime Tracers is and how you're helping people all over the country. But first, let's get a little bit into your background in real estate and how Prime Tracers came about.
Yeah, sure, Andrew. Appreciate the introduction. So personally, I've been in the industry or in the real estate industry for 10 years. I started out as just an agent, and I found that there was like a niche for investors, and essentially there was a market here in Jacksonville that a lot of agents were staying away from, and it was in like the lower income areas, and I wasn't afraid to market in those areas. And so the way that I was originally trying to generate leads, I really had no circle of influence when I first got started in the business. And so I was looking at, inbound leads, paper leads through Zillow. And then I also was pulling lists from PropStream, which I think was Equimine at the time. And so that's how like literally I was generating my leads before, was doing cold outreach through cold calls that way. And then I was also doing like Zillow paper leads. And I was just Premier Agent, right? So I don't think they have, what's their new one that they have now? They have like some new,
Flex.
Agent Flex,
Yeah.
So I know they have that now, but before, back in like 2015, it was just, Premier Agent.
Yep.
And so I was marketing these areas that I knew that I could like essentially just do like $10, $15 for like per lead or something like that. It was like $30 a month. It was crazy because nobody was tapping into those markets. Nobody wanted to touch those markets. And the reason why I bring up that story is because that's how I was essentially getting exposed to invest into the investment world of real estate and real estate investing. And so I had several clients that were purchasing rental properties from me at the time, like a 20 cap. Over time, I was doing pretty well, for like someone who's just started in the industry. I think the first year I had, I cleared like 180,000 as like as a new agent. And
Not
so
bad.
like I was doing pretty well, starting out as a, 25-year-old kid in the industry.
Yeah.
And what ended up happening was I actually started losing some of my buyers to these wholesalers. And so I would have my investors reach out to me, and they would go ahead and send me like emails of properties that aren't listed on the MLS. And I was like, what the heck is this? What is going on? Like, I've never seen this before.
Yeah.
Or why is it on the MLS? Like, who's listing this? And then I would like talk to the person. They're like, no, we're assigning the contract. I'm like, what are you guys talking about? Right. And so that
concept of wholesaling was super new to you at that point.
Yeah, it was super new to me. I mean, it was like, I think at this point, it was like the very next year. So like 2016, 2017. And I remember that I was like, okay, they're like, you need to fit your commission in with your buyer. And so I said, okay, fine, whatever. Another person said they would pay me a commission, but the max they would pay me is like 1,500. And then I saw that they had like a 25K assignment on the property. And I was like, okay, screw this. Like, my investors, obviously, they liked me, but they didn't want to keep having to pay me a commission if they could just get it direct from the wholesaler, right? And so that really put a fire in my pit. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to figure out what the heck is going on, because I want to start, doing the same thing. Because, at that point, I was like, I feel like I couldn't beat them. So I was like, I'm just going to join. I'm going to work with these guys. I'm going to figure this out. I'm going to figure this process out. And so going back to the lead generation side, when I first started out in the industry, it was like really tough. I was pretty much a bartender before then, and I had a few $1,000 cash like saved up, and all the money that I had, I just full sent into my real estate business. And my first deal ever was like $800 on like some crappy $30,000 condo here in Jacksonville, which they're now like 100,000, right? Because the Florida market's insane now. Well, it's always been insane, but Jacksonville like really blew up over the last decade. And then my second deal ever was $1,000 commission. And from then I just reinvested everything into my lead gen, right? Yeah. And so that was doubling down on Zillow and doubling down on my cold calling campaigns. The reason why I essentially started figuring out like this idea like Prime Tracers was just like the skip tracing process, because I knew that like, to do cold calls, you had to pay for skip tracing. And back then, skip tracing was pretty expensive, right? I mean, some people were paying 12, 15 cents a lead, and some still are.
Yeah. So you started realizing what wholesaling was. and there was almost like an opportunity cost that you're leaving money on the table, so you wanted to figure it out. And you where did you kind of like, what was the first step that you took in order to go down that path?
Yeah, so when I essentially, I started realizing that it was something that I was just really interested in because I've always been like a nerdy guy. I was always into I wanted to get into the tech space before I got into real estate, and I actually went to college for for programming for like my freshman year, and
Hmm.
then afterwards it kind of just fizzled out, right? Like those aspirations kind of fizzled out, and um, I got into the sales space at a really young age, started doing sales all my life, and then I got into real estate because my dad was like he's still a broker to this day, and so he actually got me into real estate and told me it's a great idea to get into it because I was tired of being a bartender, right?
Yeah.
I was like, I'm not really getting anywhere. At that point, I was like, mid 20s, and I started wanting to building a career. And I guess that passion of like being kind of a tech nerd and wanting to get back into that space. I was always curious about how things worked,
Hmm.
and I was curious about where data comes from, how do people get people's information, and that type of thing. And so after doing like some further digging, I was essentially like just like what, maybe I could start my own like prop tech company. But this was like back in 2018, and I was still going through growth. I had a real estate team back then, and that was like my primary focus,
Okay.
right? And so what ended up happening is, well, I've been friends with the CEO, Aaron Stevens, and um, we've been friends for quite some time. And we're actually surf buddies right now. We go surfing whenever we can and stuff when, the business isn't absolutely killing us.
Right.
But, and so he's been a full stack developer for 10 years as well. And we've done a few real estate deals together. And one day he saw me working on my computer and going through PropStream. And he was like, hey, like, what are you doing? And I was like, oh, dude, I'm just trying to find our next off market deal. This is how I source our deals, right? And so he was just kind of observing that and like it's like this is like super interesting. Like, what are you guys doing? Or like, how does this work? And then he was just kind of like, I was just showing him how I was going through pre foreclosures, how I was going through our high equity leads that enlist, and how I was putting them through a dialer to do the outreach. And then he just kind of left it at that, right? He's just like, okay, cool. And then one day he just comes back out to me. He was like, dude, what do you think about if we did something like this, right? What if we just did the skip tracing? I have connections with other databases because he's like I said, he's been in the industry for a long time, and
Hmm.
so he had access to you know large databases throughout the U.S. And so he was like, I can make this come together and I can enrich the data sets, build a proprietary ID graph, and then expose that to a user base.
Right.
And so for Aaron being a developer, it was more like a my will, his hands type of situation, right? So it was more like he was just saying, "Hey, man, you tell me exactly what you as an investor and as an agent want,
Hmm.
and I will make it happen."
Okay, so you took your expertise and experience using other products out there and, that knowledge base of boots on the ground, and then he was able to go and kind of turn it into what Prime Tracers ultimately turned out to be today.
Yeah, exactly. So we started off as just like a skip tracing company,
Okay.
because our contact data is fantastic, right? In fact, we actually have an upgrade coming out in the next week, I want to say, and that'll be an additional like 300 million verified mobile numbers
Awesome.
that were added to
Talk
our
about
database.
contact data real quick,
Yeah,
and like how you all compare to the industry standards. Can you walk me through like what you mean by that?
yeah, sure. So with contact data sets, you essentially have it to where you have third-party brokers, right? And they sell data to other data companies. And then you also have it to where, and essentially that's just what a lot of people are like asking for us. Funny enough, is that we are in development of our API right now, and once that's developed, we'll be able to, people will be able to white label us and use our data sets. And so at that point, we're brokering that data to them.
Right.
Now, on our end, we're having to enrich the data sets. So we essentially get a bunch of data that comes in, right? So the ones that Aaron's has, we take those data sets, and it's over like several thousand indexes, right? And we're talking like 2 trillion data sets. When I mean 2 trillion data sets, I mean that's, names, emails, phone numbers, demographic data sets, financial indicators, like a very vast amount of information out there.
Yeah.
But the hard part is being able to take all of this data that we have control of and essentially putting it into a digestible format for the users to use. And so right now, I mean, the way that the contact data works is, I would say, going back to your question, industry average is 50%, and we sit around 75% right
Just
now.
to clarify, Stephen, the industry average, so like you put my name or my property into Prime
Hmm.
Tracers, and then you say, hey, I need to find contact information for Andrew.
Yeah.
So that's like cell phone number, landline, maybe if you still have it, or an email address.
Yeah.
That's the 50% compared to your 75, 80%.
So there's match rate, right? There's match rate and there's accuracy.
Okay.
So two very important things to note, because perfect example of this is our match rate on our emails is really only 40% across our data sets, maybe
Mhm.
45%. And some people kind of, that kind of puts some people out because when people do other skip tracers, they get like 4 or 5 emails and it's like, you know, and there's no missing data,
Yeah.
right? Or they have like a really high match rate, but then their bounce rate's like 50%, right? And it kills their domain. For our emails that we append, everything, all of our data, all of our contact data is run through that identity graph I talked about earlier. And when it goes through that identity graph, it also goes through an internal confidence score. And if a certain threshold isn't met on confidence, we don't push that data out to our users and we don't append it to people's list.
Almost detrimental to them, the end user, to get email addresses that don't make any sense. I mean,
Yeah.
it's hard enough if I have your email address and I'm trying to sell you something to even get you to respond if I know with confidence if you even gave me your email.
Yeah.
So it's a scarier theory or like concept of like, let me get 8 emails just for Steven and
Yeah.
then see which one works.
Yeah. Like you said, also it messes up with your, what's the word? It messes up your, uh,
What, like a domain
your
score?
your domain score and reputation, right? And so you definitely don't want that to happen. We also have like certain filters, like spam filters, or we call them like bait emails
Yeah,
that you don't want to send emails to. And so that's other data sets we can expose, but it's not our retail exposure. The front facing product we have right now for Prime Tracers is really probably about like 15%, 20% of what we actually have on our back end.
gotcha.
And so it's just being able to again take all this raw data and enriching it to where it's going to be beneficial to the users.
Yeah,
So like for our emails, that 40% match rate, that all of our emails go through a one-step verification process. And I would say across all data sets, it's like a 98% delivery rate.
okay.
So the bounce rate's very low with us.
But you purposely, just to kind of summarize your the way that you collect data or provide data to like your end users, if you don't have a high enough confidence score when you're going through that verification process, you won't even show it to them
No.
because it's not going to help them. It'll actually probably hurt them long term, especially in volume.
Yeah, exactly. So like we have some people that ask, "Hey, how come I only get like 3 phone numbers?"
Mm-hmm.
Well, there's probably only one CEO that I know of that has like 6 numbers.
Yeah, that's true.
Most people don't have, more than 3 numbers. And if they have, let's say two, the third one normally is going to be like that you see that pops up on your list is going to be like a spouse or a
Right.
close friend or a business partner, right? Or a work number. So we don't want to like fill your spreadsheets with extra data that doesn't make sense or is just old data, right?
Yeah.
People talk about we append up to 12 numbers. 12 who has 12 phone numbers?
Yeah. I mean, dude, going back to just tactical level stuff with a
Yeah.
12 number, 6 numbers even, that's a morale killer on a team.
Oh, it
Too.
is.
Like if you get 10,000 records and each record has 4 or 5, 6 phone numbers, think about how many more X number of calls per connect or appointment or closed deal that your cold caller, your ISAs, your appointment setters are going to have to go through. That's tough. So the fact that you only, you guys try your best to only provide the top 1, 2, or 3 numbers,
Yeah.
that's a time saver. And just, it's tough if you it's a hard sell, I guess, if you're like, oh, call Steven on these 8 numbers.
Yeah,
One guy, 8 numbers, like,
it's ridiculous. So, sometimes less is more, right? And I'm a firm believer in that. And that's something that annoyed me when I was like going through other products, was
yeah,
just how many numbers I was getting. I would go through like a dialer, I would use my dialer system, and it would just be like, connection rates like 6%.
yeah, yeah.
It's like, this is horrible, right? I don't want to do this. It's just
Yeah,
like I
the
said,
fact
it's
that you get so many numbers at 6% doesn't even, like, that's such a turnoff. I would
yeah.
rather have one number at like a high confidence level than six at that lowest
Yeah,
percent.
exactly, right? Because you're getting in contact with leads quicker.
Yeah,
You're keeping more out up because your talk time is longer, right? You're
right.
getting more talk time. It's just overall a better experience and it's a more effective way to do your outreach.
Yeah,
And so I knew that, and that's why I told Aaron, "Hey, listen, let's only do the top three numbers. These other numbers that we have in our database, don't even bother exposing them."
yeah,
Right. And honestly, the more I would say the new users that are into this space and they've just started like their first outreach campaigns, they are none the wiser. But some of the veterans that have been in this space for a long time and have used several other platforms and skip tracers
yeah,
and data companies, they're like, oh, like you guys rock, because I could definitely see like the lift in accuracy. I mean,
yeah.
some people report like up to like a 40% lift sometimes.
Yeah, the kind of unknown unknowns there that you just kind of alluded to, in my opinion, and this happened on our team too, where you'd have some lead source, and then there was
Mhm.
so many leads coming in, which was great. So let's equate like the number of leads versus the number of phone numbers you have.
Yeah,
But if it's hard to connect with them, your team or even you are going to burn out so fast, and then you're not even going to pay attention to it. Like if I gave you as a cold caller on a team 6 numbers per person, you're going to not want to work that anymore and probably walk away or quit or just completely ignore it. So that's like one of the secondary or tertiary factors of like something like that. So the
yeah.
fact that you're only providing high confidence level phone numbers is really smart.
Yeah, and like I said, same thing with the emails too. Like people love that about the emails because they don't have to waste their time sending
Yeah.
all, especially if you're doing like manual email process where you're
Right.
literally having to like write it up yourself. You're not using a secondary product like Apollo or Mailchimp, right?
Yeah.
So
I mean, could
it,
you imagine like I get 6 emails from you and I have to like copy and paste 6 manual emails and 5 of them or all 6 are like undelivered, undelivered, like it's hard
yeah,
enough to follow up with someone with an actual email that you know is right. Imagine like that would drive me crazy.
yeah, exactly. Same thing. So like as far as like reputation score goes, same thing with like SMS, right? So if like you're using Twilio or something, and if you're sending a lot of text to bad numbers,
Right.
your number's gonna get flagged, right, by carriers. So
Yeah.
that's another reason why we only want to put information out there that we have a high confidence in.
Yep.
Now the confidence score isn't readily available for the users to see. We can see it on our back end. We thought about exposing it, but again, less is more. And sometimes I feel like when you expose too much to users, it can kind of like confuse them or set the wrong expectations,
Right.
right? So just something to note.
Eventually, man, when people, if you did, just hypothetically, eventually that would kind of subconsciously affect people's approaches too, I think.
Yeah, yeah,
Like
exactly.
it's too much information to say like, oh, confidence levels between X% and X% or Y%, I'm not going to.
Yeah,
So there's like an extra level of filtering in your brain going on versus just like high confidence all the way around. Let's just go and, go and do it.
yeah, it's the same thing. Like we actually exposed the confidence score for our AVM model in
Hmm.
our in prime traders, and we tell people, hey, listen, unless it's like a 93% or higher, which is like it's going to be like green and everything, like the actual like number, unless it's like a 93% or better, I probably wouldn't even bother like even considering it as close to the actual value of the property.
Right.
But then again, that also affects with people's decisions, right? It's
Yep.
like you should still do your own research, but in terms of like phone numbers, again, if people see like a low confidence score phone number and they're like, oh, I'm not going to bother calling these, like they'll get
Exactly.
chat to like sort their list. Hey, sort these based on like this confidence score, and the next thing you know they only have like 70% of what they originally started with to call, when that
Yeah.
30% could be a deal or two that might miss out on, right? Because it
Yeah.
might actually connect to that owner. And so I think that's another thing that general users, it takes a while for them to understand, is that the data, data is fantastic, but it's not perfect, right? I think a lot
Yeah.
of people, they'll come in with like a 500 record list or something, and they're like, hey, why is my list only like at 80% accuracy, right? And you're like, that's actually really fantastic.
Yeah.
Like a 15% IVR is not bad at all, or 10% IVR is not bad on your
Right.
calls, out of 500. So,
Yeah. Yeah. It's
um,
a volume thing. And I mean, the data is only as good as the data is collected, and people change emails and phone numbers
yeah,
all the time. So I could see how it would be tough to get, 100% accuracy there. That's never going to
exactly.
happen.
And that's why I go back to emails, because like our email, the way, like how like low, right, our email append rate is. Like our match rate's only 40%, but the
Hmm.
reason why is there's so many junk emails out there, right?
Yeah.
So many people put Mickey Mouse 123 at hotmail.com, or they literally put an extra letter when they mistype, right?
Yeah.
So the data collection, it's up to us, and this is really where like the quality comes in. It's up to us and our staff to enrich the data when we get it, right?
Okay.
And then before we expose it, we have to make sure that our identity graph is trained well enough to match information appropriately.
Okay. And how often does that happen, Stephen? How often do you like take records and do like a full flush upgrade to make sure the latest and greatest info is available?
Yeah, so there's a couple of things that happen. One is we can acquire large data sets after aggregation. So 95% of our contact data is actually through first party opt-in and data that we've aggregated. The other 5% we purchase through third party brokerages. Um, for as far as like I said earlier, I think it was like the 300 million that we have coming in of verified mobile numbers. So that's like
Hmm.
something that we're purchasing, and then it goes through our enrichment process
Okay.
and validation process. And so the actual updates can be, technically we update our database every day. Technically we have AI in our data scientists that go through our entire database constantly. We have
Okay.
scripts running that essentially detect whether or not contact needs to be updated. In fact, sometimes it's like our identity graph is constantly changing. You can actually sometimes skip trace a list with us and skip trace it, like let's say later that day, and then you get like 5 additional contacts on like a couple thousand record list. And you're
That's
like, whoa,
how much it's
yeah,
like.
because it's just constantly changing. And
Right.
it's very dynamic, right?
Yeah.
And so that's why, again, that's why people like see the lift in accuracy. Whereas, I'm not going to mention other databases, but sometimes you get like instant reveals on contact data,
Hmm.
and some people are wondering like, like why is the data just sitting there and it's just blurred out and then it just gets revealed instantly. A lot of other companies, well, I won't say a lot, but I say other companies, they have static databases and static buckets that once you essentially like, reveal, or once they have those, let's say that like that big purchase that we're doing,
Hmm.
once they purchase a large amount of data, they'll expose it to their user base, and then it won't get updated for a long time, right?
So it's like data that I'm making this up, but a company might have purchased in May of 2025, and
Hmm.
then I'm not buying it until August 1st today. So
Yeah.
it's literally been sitting there stale
Yeah,
since
it's just
that point.
it's static, right? It's static,
Yeah.
so it's like instantly boom, here's the
Yeah.
information, because another 100 500,000 users have already skip
Right.
traced this, and so here it is.
Yeah.
You know, and then they'll take 3 to 5 months to upgrade it again, right?
Okay.
Whereas with us, it's constantly changing. And again, we have that identity graph. I mean, it's literally like the key to good data is having a well trained graph, because that's what's going to match individual information, take any data set that it possibly can. And so that's another thing, too. Some people are like, hey, can I give you a first name and a last name and a state? You can give me information. It's like, it's not magic.
There might be a million of that name in that state.
Right.
Yeah.
It's not magic, guys. It is 100%. We call it in the data space GIGO, which is garbage in, garbage out.
Yeah.
So if
Yeah.
you give us bad data, our identity graphs is going to give you bad data back. It's like, ooh, what is this?
So
Right?
essentially, Stephen, your identity graph is to make sure that the Andrew Becker that lives in Alexandria, Virginia, when you get updated is updating that specific Andrew, not the one that lives in, Blacksburg, Virginia.
Correct.
So it's matching up the right Andrew
Right.
every time
Exactly.
you put it
Based
through.
on the other information you can provide,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
So whether that's your phone number and email to reverse and find your
Yeah.
actual address, and then it ties that identity to you based on like the first and last name, right? So
Yeah.
it's like so you have to have some pieces of the puzzle. It's like an investigation, really,
Yeah.
right? It's the same way that PIs find people and stuff, is that they use data sources like ours. Now don't expose like there's certain other data sets out there that are like very personal, and even though we are PII compliant and remain PII compliant, you also don't want to we don't want to have certain data sets that some people shouldn't have.
Right. Yeah.
I'll just put it that way. But we do have a pretty vast database in light of that.
All right, so that is we've been talking quite some, a while about the accuracy and the type of information you're able to extract as a user out of Prime Tracers. Now let's kind of shift the focus to the strategy or the tactical part of it. I'm a wholesaler. I'm an agent trying to get and generate new business through lists. Talk to me about how how your platform helps people obtain what they need to do to ultimately, at the end of the day, they just want to grow their business, make more money, get more revenue in the door. So can we talk about the tactical part of this?
Yeah, sure. So again, when I first like had this product envisioned with Aaron, I just remember going back 10 years ago how hard it was to get in the space with zero influence, like zero circle of influence. At the time I didn't, I had probably like five, six friends I talked to, but none of them were in a position to buy a house, right? My dad's a broker, like,
Meeting with your dad.
yeah, hey, hey, mom, dad, you need to buy a new house, or like their friends, you need to buy a new house. And
Yeah.
so my influence was pretty small, and so I knew everything I had to do was cold, and that's when I took all that money that I had, or I said all that money, but it was like a couple grand, and invested it
A lot
as
of money to you when you're in.
yeah, exactly. And so with that in mind, the ethos I had for Prime Traces was, I wanted it to be a low barrier entry product, and I wanted it to be where anybody could, possibly see success as long as they applied themselves to their business. And so that's why Prime Traces is free to sign up. We don't do any type of paywall to get started with us. We don't have you give your blood of your firstborn or your credit card information to get
Right.
started. It's just like, hey, give us your email, verify it, and sign it up. Sign up. You can start looking at properties right away. You could download as many lists as you want for free, and you just got to pay for the skip tracing, and that's pay as you go. And the more that you purchase at once, you just get more confidence in your actual business and your strategy, which we're about to go over. Then you can purchase more at a discounted rate, right? So
Yeah.
that's always been my vision for the product. And it's kind of funny because ever since we came up with this type of product, we're starting to see like a lot of other people come up with it as well.
Yeah.
As far as like strategy goes, so like me as a wholesaler, like my go-to, I know everybody talks about, and we do have these lead types, of course, because people want these lead types. That's like the absentee owners, tired landlords, the pre-foreclosures. We have probate leads, right? And honestly, I've always been very successful with volume and targeting high equity owners. And so, the way that you can do that on Prime Tracers, I like my go-to is, especially for people getting into the space, is take all the pre-foreclosures in the last 6 months, save that to your list. And the reason why I do the last 6 months is because if someone was in pre-foreclosure 6 months ago, even though they got caught up on their arrears, chances are they're going to probably, unfortunately, end up in that same position again.
Yeah.
Our probate leads, I would make a separate list for the probate leads, and obviously those are going to be like more like the long play, unless there's not a lot of heirs and it's been past 2 years since they've been in probate. But I would definitely pull a separate list for those. And then the biggest thing that gives us the most success is our high equity list. And so high equity, it basically starts at 70%.
Okay.
For our system, we defaulted to 70%, or you can go to our advanced filters and essentially set it at 70%, greater than or equal to that. And I set the median home value of your market. So for Jacksonville, I want to say that's like around 400.
Mm-hmm.
Set that median home value as your max value for your filters, right? And then I would go ahead and do minimum ownership 3 years, and based off of that, you should be able to get people that are in like high turnover zip codes or very desirable zip codes where investors are either looking to flip in or landlords are looking to purchase in and rent, and it's just going to be like a great high turnover spot. Like if you
Yeah.
look at those, if you keep it within those metrics. So I'm not sure like how are you doing it before, Andrew, when you guys were doing like outbound, or have you always been doing a lot of
We
PPC?
purchased our list, honestly. And for those of you that did not pick up on that, Prime Tracers allows you to get a free account, go in and pull pre foreclosures. And if you don't skip trace it, you can literally export the list, right?
Yeah.
And go door knock or
I
door.
mean, we have I mean, we have plenty of users. And it doesn't make us money except for the word of mouth,
Yeah.
but they'll just go in and they do direct mail marketing campaigns and they'll spend a few grand on that every month, and that's just their
Yeah.
thing, right? They just don't do anything else with direct mail, and they'll just download a list and give it to one of their mailing agents, right?
Yeah.
Mailing
Dude,
agencies.
I honestly wish we would have had you all 5, 6, 7 years ago because we spent thousands of dollars just acquiring the list. Like that was step one.
That's so
I
crazy.
won't, it started with the C. I won't name it, but we got an account with this C.com.
Yeah,
Would go in and we would say, show us all properties in this zip code with this equity level. And filtering is a strategy on its own, right? Like that is super important to get people that you think have a high probability of selling.
yeah,
But we spent, $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 on these massive lists, record databases. And then we did what you said. We would like plug it into our CRM and mail it, and then spend another 5, 6, 7 grand mailing it
yeah.
for the next, however many months. But that's how we would pull it.
Proceeded
Yeah.
with you
Yeah.
guys today. And
Yeah.
so it's really about the filters you select. And this goes literally back to 20 minutes ago about how I was talking. We have all this data
Yeah.
and all this incredible raw data that's like, man, as long as you could figure out how to utilize it, it's valuable, right? And making that, it really is just about combining filter sets to make like the perfect lead type that you want.
Right.
And then you come up with your own formulas for scoring, let's say someone's desire to sell their home, right? Likely sellers, and that's what you probably see with these other prop tech sites. Like we don't have AI integrated yet with our website, but like the AI intelligence stuff, where it's like, hey, this person's most likely to sell, but they're probably most likely to sell because let's say they have, or let's talk about tired landlords, for example. We have sometimes you just ask, hey, I don't see a tired landlord filter. I'm like, you want a tired landlord filter? It's literally absentee owner and they own a property for 10 plus years.
Yeah.
That is a tired landlord. That is all it is. It's not some magical filter that's says that's had a survey sent out to the landlord saying, "Hey, are you tired of owning this property?"
Yeah. And like submit it back. Yeah, that doesn't. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
little nuances that you clearly know, but a
right.
lot of people don't know that when they're first starting.
Right. I mean, listen, if you're not a tech person, you're new to the business, you just see tired landlord like, oh, cool, like right, like that's an awesome filter. Or someone's likely to sell. Well, they're likely to sell because they are in pre foreclosure and they have some equity.
And they have to sell for
Yeah,
that
and they have to sell.
reason.
So right, or they've owned, like, again, it's a tired landlord and they have 70% plus equity.
Yeah,
Okay, that person's probably likely to sell.
yeah. Or
Um,
it's vacant and they've owned it for 20 plus years. Yeah,
and
it's
they're out of
interesting.
state owner, right?
Yeah, yeah, they don't even live in the state. It's this is super interesting, Stephen, because a lot of agents, whether they're newbies or kind of like getting into this part of the game, it's
Yeah.
so strategic if you really kind of zoom out and look at the framework of it. Because if you like, there's a lot that goes into this, right? Like choosing the right data provider and
Hmm.
record provider is number one. Like, is the data good? Is it not good? Do you have to pay for it? Do you get it for free? Tracing the accuracy level. Because if you kind of start down the wrong path with your data, 6 months later, you're going to not see the results that you thought you might be able to see because of what happened on day one when you went to the wrong, provider to get the wrong data
Yeah.
and it wasn't accurate.
Yeah, exactly. And what also happens with that, and you could speak to this, is someone who's first getting started, if you're just getting started in your outreach campaigns, and let's say you don't typically do cold outreach, and your cold outreach requires you to have data. sets. So whether you're doing
Hmm.
calls, SMS, email, whatever kind of campaign you're doing. And if you have bad data and you try that for a month or two, and then here's the other thing too, people don't give themselves enough runway. I'm getting on a tangent here, but people don't
Yeah.
give themselves enough runway. You should give yourself 90 days before you decide whether or not a strategy is going to work for you. Right? 60 to 90 days, 60 minimum, but 90 days is ideal to figure out if a strategy is going to work for your business.
Yeah, it depends. I mean, even if you just chose to do buy records, get their mailing addresses, and then mail them, there's all kinds of statistics about, you have to mail someone 7 times
Oh
before they
yeah,
realize that you're getting mailed.
it's
So that could be more than six,
yeah.
or
So
60, 90 days.
it depends on the industry, right? So like, or not
Right.
industry, I'm sorry, but it depends on the strategy. Like mailing, if you're going to be doing like direct mailers, you got to wait at least 90 days before you really start seeing that. Like it probably will take 3 months before you get that first contract,
Yeah.
right? Because people are throwing that away. You have your A pile, B pile. This goes into like the Gary Halbert letter and stuff like that. I'm going to get into
Yeah.
that's another like that's a whole nother thing on
Yeah.
its own if you're talking about different like mailing strategies. But same thing with like PPC. But like again, it's also like depends on the cost, right? Because if you're doing like PPL, you could spend 300 to 500 bucks a lead, and it takes if you don't close every one in 10 or 14 leads, then you're just like burning money. You're just setting money on fire, right?
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, from a cost perspective, I would still say like cold calling is the most efficient way and the most cost effective way to get started in the industry, right?
Especially
And
if you go offshore.
yeah, and then if you go like, and then once you get that first deal, right, then you could expand your marketing channels and get into omni-channel marketing, right? Whether that's through
Yep.
PPC, and also hiring, account managers to do your calls for you and whatnot, your outbound calls, or if you're doing SMS or emails, right, or direct
Hmm.
mail. So there's plenty of ways to get in contact once you get that first deal, but it's also again about just setting the expectations. So 60, 90-day runway is what you want to keep. Kind of forgot where we're going on. Why I brought that up though on that tangent.
Well, I brought up the fact that like how important it is to like start from the right foundation of
Right. Yes.
like,
Correct.
database and
There we
records.
go.
Because if you go down the wrong path,
You're
you're
gonna
going
be.
to think the scripts you use, the approach you use
Yeah.
aren't going to work, and you're going to be like, I got to try something else. But maybe it was the way you approached it,
Yeah.
and a lot of people don't know how important. Like people are like, oh, all my friends are using this,
Yeah.
but is that really the best starter, foundation to start with? Maybe, maybe not.
Yeah, and it's funny because we get people that switch from other platforms, right? Or we have people that leave our platform to switch to another platform because they had a shiny object over there,
Then
and
come back.
then they come back because the data
Right.
is bad, right, or something like
Yeah.
that, or it's not like satisfactory to them. But when you're starting, especially as somebody new in the business, whether you're an agent, wholesaler, contractor, whatever, and you have that first set of bad data, that first month or two, it really turns you off. You're like, man, maybe I can't do this, right? Or what's worse, like you just said, you start hopping to the next shiny opportunity, and the next thing you know, you just wasted 3 grand on direct mail for a month. You didn't get any results from that, so then you freak out. You jump to PPL. You spend another 3 grand on leads, on 10 leads. Nothing happens, and then you're jumping over to, try to do Facebook ads, and then you don't realize that the heavy hitters in the Facebook side is doing 10 grand a month,
Yeah.
right? At least minimum. I mean, there's people here in Jax that do 75, 100 grand a month in marketing, right, on PPC. So
It can have really bad detrimental effects on not only you as a business owner if you're putting in the time, money, and effort, but also, like we had mentioned, very low barrier of entry way to lead gen is through cold callers. Imagine hiring a cold caller, being like, here's the whole plan. We're going to get lists, we're going to get numbers. I set you up with the dialer. And then 8 out of 10, they never connect with. They're going to jump ship too. And then you're going
yeah,
to have to constantly have turnover issues with your cold calling team. So it is kind of like, in the real estate world or the economy, I guess, cash is king. In the marketing world, specifically, we're talking about, I mean, this is true, whatever industry you're in, but specifically for this conversation, real estate,
yeah.
data is king.
Hmm.
If you have really good data, you are light years ahead of a lot of people who have really bad data.
Yeah, it all starts with the data, honestly. I mean, no, data isn't really sexy unless you understand it.
Right. Well, the good thing is people can come to Prime Tracers, and you've gone through that, decade long of trial error learning experience to pop out what needs to be understood.
Yeah,
So then they
ex-
can go and just do, like, nobody needs to become an expert on how to pull records if you guys just provide that for them. And
right.
then they just go pull the records, high confidence level, and then they do what they do to follow up and market to.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's the other thing too is people will come to us and they say, hey, you guys should look at integrating a dialer system, or you guys should look into, offering direct mail services and stuff like that. I'm like, listen, that sounds cool and all, especially from like a revenue generating standpoint, but that is not our focus at all.
Yeah.
We are a data company first and foremost. And so the quality of our data is like our number one priority. And I'm a firm believer that if you try to stretch yourself out too much across other products and offerings, you're going to thin out your actual like, quality of all products, right? You're going to be
Yeah.
the master at nothing, right?
Your competitive advantage is you focus on data and you're really, really good at it.
Yeah, and that's it.
And you don't want to, be a victim of your own demise and go chase a dialer setup for 2 years. And then
Yeah,
you're,
right.
you're
Like I'm
worried
not gonna go
about,
to
like,
Twilio and be like, "Hey, Twilio, can we
yeah,
integrate with you?" You know what I mean? It's like no, like and I get it, right? Because other companies are okay with that, and they have their own ideas and stuff like that. But I'm not, we're not interested in that. Aaron and I aren't interested in that. We just want to be the best at what we can provide, just be really good at one service, right?
awesome.
So we do have obviously different data services, right? But we're not going to do anything in addition to like tool wise, right?
Right.
But that's why like our focus is, hey, we want to make a great API and develop this API to where it's going to be a seamless integration for those people that do want to branch out and have different offerings, right? That's
Yeah.
totally up to them, but it's not something that we're going to do.
Yeah, man, this is a really good segue, I think. We have an announcement that we are pretty excited about making
Hmm.
about, you being really good at data and then potentially partnering with people. So do you want to tell everyone what this announcement is?
Yeah. So because going to the whole thing of we want to be the master of one thing and one thing only, we know that the team at Billions and Brighter are the masters of what they do. So Prime Tracers is officially partnering with Billions and Brighter, and we're very excited about working with you guys.
Yeah, man, we are too. We talk, me, you, and Ray, another Prime Tracer team member. We talk all the time, and I'm actually flying out to Chicago. We're having a
Yeah.
little powwow to meet in person for the first time, but it's going to be great. We're very excited with Aaron's API work and the back end, where kind of like we can talk about what benefits this is going to bring to your group and our group, but essentially will be directly integrated with your backend system. So if I want a list, I can get it and it just goes into the CRM as probates. And if you want to skip trace, you can click a button and get numbers and emails and then put them on a drip where we can text and we can email and we can direct mail right out of our system. So
Right.
we're trying to make it in this partnership as easy as people on people as we can to get good data, good records, and then have their team hit the ground and make those outbound calls and outbound texts and generate more revenue.
Yeah, it's exciting, man. It's great to just be able to refer our users to people that we can trust. And you guys have a wonderful product on the PPC side and on the CRM side. And the great thing about having the data that we do is we can always take feedback from our users from both your end and our end and enhance our offerings and capabilities. The great thing is when you have amazing data and you have an amazing development team, you can pretty much do anything you want, right?
Yeah, I think this is going to be a really good pairing for people who want that whole framework or that whole system to work these leads. So
Hmm.
I'm incredibly grateful and happy that we connected
Yeah,
and we're
me
able
too.
to do this together. And I wanted to say, man, a little birdie told me you just recently crossed the 3,000 user accounts on Prime Tracers. That is
Yeah,
amazing. I'm so happy for you guys. That is not a not a small feat to
yeah.
cross. Congratulations, man.
Thanks, man. Yeah, it's really exciting. I mean, we're growing. I'd like to grow a little faster. I mean, everybody wants to grow faster, but I think we're experiencing very healthy growth. I mean, uh it's kind of crazy from where we start because we been around since 23, but we just started off as like a skip tracing service, and because of that, it's a lot of friction for a user to get involved, and really they're not going to really utilize your site. They'll go skip trace maybe once a week or once a month,
Yeah.
that type of thing,
Yeah.
right? And that's when I was like, Aaron, we got to offer more than just this. And I think what would be really awesome is if we could give access to off market properties for free in those free
Hmm.
lists, right?
Yeah.
And really we just had the property data sets come out in March. And so that's when we started really seeing explosive growth because it was more tangible. And honestly, there's a very negative connotation around skip tracing. Everyone's getting approached by skip tracers. I'm a skip tracer this from
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
overseas and stuff like that. And there's just like so many skip tracing companies out there, and it's just like we really wanted to set ourselves apart, and so that's why we want to offer these data sets. That's why we're offering the demographic data set soon, the business demographic soon, because I know we're talking and focused more like on the real estate side and
Hmm.
agents, real estate agents, traditional real estate sales and wholesalers and investments, but there's other avatars out there that we're helping as well, like
Yeah.
and that also could use your CRM as well. So and we
No, I
want to.
absolutely love your business model. I was honestly, dude, I was quite frankly a little shocked when I learned that you provide that information up front and then, for free essentially.
Yeah,
I did some tests around some paid record databases that we use and it was kind of blew my mind. And
yeah,
then the fact that you can just click a button and then have the contact info, what more if you're struggling out there for lead generation and you're like, where am I going to get my next deal? Short of doing the open houses or door knocking, what more could you ask for? This is a perfect
yeah.
product where you can literally do it from the convenience of your house and then blast everything off from here.
Yeah. And honestly, man, it's funny because it's not attractive to capital when they see like our model. They're like, "Ooh,
Yeah.
like where's the MRR?" You know what
Right.
I mean? Like,
Right. Right.
where's the subscription model, right? That's why everybody does subscription models, right? That's why everybody pushes the annual. And they kind of like default that sometimes when you're looking at SaaS products.
Right.
But for us, again, I'm a firm believer in people being successful, or I'm just like I just want to see people succeed, and so it doesn't help us. We don't provide a service to you. It doesn't service you if you spend 100, 150, $200 a month on a service that you don't utilize, right?
Right.
Number one, that's why it's pay as you go. The other thing is if you're not successful, Prime Tracers is not successful because if your data sucks and
Yeah.
your records suck and you can't get success off that, you're not going to come back and buy anymore,
Right.
right? And so customer satisfaction is number one to us. Where other companies, they know that they're going to get a 2-3 month subscription off you, even if you're not serious about your business, right? They're like, hey,
Hmm.
you're going to forget about the subscription, and you're not going to utilize our data to the full extent of its capabilities, and you're just going to be another number to us, right? You're just
Yeah.
going to be giving us that reoccurring revenue. Whereas us,
Right.
it's like, hey, you could start off as little as $10, and we have people that spend several $1,000s a month,
Yeah.
right? But it's all based on what your comfort level is and what your success level is. So we're built
Yeah.
to scale with our users.
And there's economies of scale built into your model anyways.
Hmm.
I don't know, like you kind of tell me, but your base package, you prepay the way it works. Let's just have you walk us through the way it works. So I go in and I say, show me all probates in the state of Virginia, and it yields 10,000. And then
Hmm.
I want to skip trace them. Can you kind of walk through my options from obviously the less you purchase up front, a little bit higher per return, but then the more you purchase, you can get it down to like what, 0.0102 per
Yeah.
record that you're hitting. Can you
I
walk?
mean, so the way that it works right now is we have packages from diamond, essentially from bronze to diamond, and diamond being 3 cents per record, 50,000 record minimum purchase, and then the bronze is like the $10.50 for 150 records, right? But that's 7 cents per record.
Okay.
So really, where people see themselves at is like at the platinum tier, and that's 4 cents per record, right?
Okay.
And that's for 10,000 records minimum because we always tell people, hey, it takes about 10,000 contacts, within a month for you to see a deal, essentially. Just on average, if you're really bad at sales, or if you're really not that good of a sales rep, this is like a very safe number
Yeah.
for you to
Yeah. Yeah.
target. And if you do your nurturing right, the way that it works is that it essentially compounds over time. Anyone that knows, about lead gen and filling a pipeline,
Yeah.
your results are going to compound over time. If you get into like our Sapphire tier, which is like more of like our enterprise level purchases, then you can get 2 cents, one
Cool.
cent, but you're talking 100,000, hundreds of thousands of records. a
Right,
month
right. And
or
you've
at a
got
purchase.
people doing millions of records with you every single month.
Yeah. So, like 1.7 million records, but they're getting a penny, right?
Yeah.
There's other guys, that even break like sub-cent. But then again, the great thing about us too, what's going to be great about our API once it's out, is we're not going to have people, they're going to sign in agreements, obviously, to ensure that they're going to be within the boundaries of the law and that
Hmm.
they're compliant, right, with the data that we provide them. There's not going to be any type of monthly subscription. There's not going to be any type of yearly agreement or quarterly agreement. It's literally going to be a pay-as-you-go API model.
Love it.
Um, and even on the Sapphire side, when people purchase those, let's say if you want to purchase 100,000 records, 200,000 records, you want to get that discount. That's a pay-as-you-go thing as well, right? Like it's just like, hey, you just make this payment, and then if you wanted to get into an agreement, so we only have agreements for our Sapphire tier,
Hmm.
and that goes into either quarterly agreements or annual agreements. And annual agreements, you get 10% off. Quarterly agreements, you get 5% off of like what your
Okay.
existing purchase price is going to be. So, but again, it's an optional thing, right? And we're going to do the same thing
Right.
with the API release. It's going to be an optional savings if you want to do that commitment with us. But everything is
Yeah.
we're all about flexibility, and we're all about, being able to help other business owners scale their business, without
Yeah.
breaking their bank.
I love it, man. And for those of you who haven't yet checked it out, we're going to provide a link to your website in the description of this episode, so you guys can go there, sign up for a free account. One thing that I really, really like, Stephen, is your UI. I think
Yeah.
it looks really cool. You can switch between like dark and light, right?
Yeah.
That's really cool too, compared to some other stuff that kind of looks like Windows 95.
Yeah. Or they're just very laggy, they just have.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if that matters to a lot of it matters to me. Like I like going into your platform and it's very clean and it's very, easy on the eyes and easy to navigate and see the information that you need to see.
Yeah. And so that's another great thing about having an in-house developer and having your,
Yeah,
senior team, like
right.
the owner, your co-owner being a co-founder being a lead dev, is that, he can really look into it and be like, oh man, this looks crusty. I don't want to push this out.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
so like, it's same thing with me, right? It's like, hey, let's change this up a bit. I feel like this could be, this could be improved. It's a lot, easier to make changes, whereas you may have these other sites where they don't have in-house development, right? It's more
yeah,
like it's all outsourced, and so it takes forever for them to update stuff,
yeah,
update data. It's great to have that. We're very privileged to have that.
yeah, yeah. Aaron's a great guy. You have a great team at Prime Tracers. Like I said, if you're interested to learn more, we're going to include a link to Steven and his team's website. If they wanted to learn a little bit more and get, those nuanced strategic approaches to building lists, et cetera, how would one, so someone goes and signs up and it's like, I can't really navigate, or I'm not, I don't know how to filter. How do you provide assistance in that way?
Yeah, so we'll actually have newsletters that you can subscribe to as well, like where you're automatically subscribed to once you sign up with us, and that can provide valuable information for you and strategies as well. We also have a walkthrough page where I personally do a walkthrough for all types of lists that you would be interested in pooling. Most typical lists like building cash buyers lists, building high equity lists, importing your own list for skip tracing that you may get from like the county or from secondary sites. And
Right.
then you can also always schedule a demo. I typically Ray or I are the ones doing the demos for one-on-ones, 30-minute sessions, and we can show you exactly how to maximize your list and
Yeah.
maximize the credits that you purchase with us.
Dude, you just kind of snuck that in there, but I need to highlight it or spotlight it. But if you're a wholesaler, this is not just a platform where you can get high intent type of leads that you think have a high probability. But you just said something that's crazy to me. You can go in and actually find cash buyers in your local area, so you can build your buyers list essentially for free, then skip trace them and start communicating with them saying, hey, I'm new, or I'm in business here. Can I bring you deals? And that is something where, before this existed, what we would do is we would talk to an owner, do the whole radius around it, see who bought it for cash, if there's an ARV property, and then skip trace them. It was the whole thing, right? With you, you could search by county, state, zip code, and start to put together a buyers list, which is extremely efficient and awesome for the disposition part of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And honestly, once you get those buyers, right, like you can build a buyers list really quickly. I mean, you're
Yeah.
talking a couple months of doing calls, and you could have a couple dozen real buyers ready
Yeah.
to purchase properties and that you could dispo
Yeah.
to.
Exactly.
And then another thing too, because you brought up again, doing the skip tracing and pulling the list for free, you guys do get an extra 100 free credits if you respond to your welcome email. Once you sign up with Prime Tracers, we'll give you 100 credits for free on top of the 25 you already get.
Awesome. So that's 125 people that you can skip trace for free to test it out.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
awesome. Yeah.
I mean,
Very cool, man.
you never know. You could get lucky on 125. I mean, it's not probable at all, but
Right.
again,
Right.
we recommend like 10,000 really is like the magic number, especially. It's just the average, but there are people that convert much higher, especially when they do their own calls, that they can get
Yeah.
away with like a 2,000, 5,000 record list. But
Yeah.
if you're trying to get that first deal that first month, 10,000 is like the magic number.
Gotcha. Cool. Well, again, man, congratulations on hitting that 3,000 milestone. That is
Thanks,
so
man.
awesome. I'm so happy for you and the team. And then, again, not to sound like a broken record, but me and the team on my side with Brighter and Billions are super happy to have met and
Yeah,
to
dude, we are
connect
so
the way we
stoked.
did and to partner. I think it's going to be really awesome for everyone. So thanks for your time, Stephen. I appreciate you being on the show. I hope someone picked up at least something, and I hope a lot of people are going to take advantage of your platform. Go sign up for a free account and try it out.
Yeah, thank you, Andrew. Looking forward
All
to
right,
our
man.
partnership, man. Thank you.
Yeah. See ya.